So we have a new Maamar from Tafshin Mem Aleph. Shabbos Parshas Ve'erach of Zayin Tevis Mevorach Machodesh Shvat. ויאמר Hashem al Moshe, Hashem said to Moshe vel Aaron, Leimar, saying, Ki daber alechem Pari Leimar, when Pari will speak to you, saying, Tnu lachem moifes, give for yourselves, present a sign, a wonder, a miracle, some type of indication that you are sent by Hashem. V'amart al Aaron, you Moshe should tell Aaron, Kach es matcha, take your staff, take your stick, v'hashal lefnei Pari, and throw it down before Pari, Yehi lesanin, it should become a tanin. Upirish Rashi Nochash. Rashi explains what is a tanin. A tanin is a serpent, a snake. Mamshel B'Kosuv, and then the pasuk continues. Vayikra gam Pari l'chacham l'olam chashvim. Pari also called his wise people, his magicians. Vayasu gam heim chartum mitzrayim b'latem came. And also these astrologers, these magicians of Pari, did this also with their magic, with their different things that they transformed their sticks into snakes as well. In other words, to show we could do the same thing. You're not anything bigger than us. Messiah, then the story concludes, Vayiv lamata Aaron es matoisom, that the stick of Aaron, the staff of Aaron, swallowed up their staffs. Meaning, not that the snake of Aaron, the snake that came from the staff, swallowed up their other snakes or their other staffs, but rather, first the snake that Aaron made went back into its initial state and became back again a stick, a staff, and then the staff of Aaron swallowed up their staffs. So the Rebbe says, it's known the analysis of this in the Maamar of the Alter Rebbe and Torah and also Noira Torah. To be able to, we need to understand the idea of the stick, the staff that became into a snake. That was the first wonder, the first sign that they gave to Pari. And preceded all the other 10 makis. So we need to understand it. Being it's the first sign, what's the significance, what's the idea, what's the concept behind it? Additionally, also we need to understand through the 10 makis, Egypt became refined. It says they emptied out Mitzrayim. They made it like a trap, like a bird trap that has no grain in it, meant to attract the birds, so you should be able to trap it. And like the depth of the sea, that has no fish. That's the birur of Mitzrayim, that they completely emptied it out. That's the refinement of Mitzrayim. They completely emptied out Mitzrayim. And how did that emptying out take place? What caused that emptying out? The cause of that emptying out was through the makis. Therefore, what started off the makis, the story now at Aaron's staff, well, it was also must be significant to this entire birur process of Mitzrayim. Moving for this understood, Hamakis, the first wonder that preceded the 10 makis must be a general concept. In other words, a very basic thing. V'amakis him protim, and the makis are specifics and details. Like it's explained in Kabbalah and Chassidus, that the 10 makis correspond to the 10 spheres. We need to understand the idea behind it. What is, if you have the 10 makis correspond to the 10 spheres, and now there is the general thing that preceded it. So obviously we need to understand the importance of. So now we're going to continue in the second paragraph in the Maamar. Hagen calls that to be able to understand all of this. In the Inyan Eretz Mitzrayim, the idea of the land of Mitzrayim, Shorshehu b'Meitzarim v'Gvulim the Kedusha Shalamayla. The physical land of Mitzrayim, the physical Egyptians, the physical nation of Mitzrayim is rooted in the concept that in Kedusha itself, there is also something that are called constraints, something that's called boundaries, and those constraints and boundaries in Kedusha, and then from that descended via chain descent, through the different separations and curtains and all other types of divisions of levels, Bechinas Meitzarim Erbas Haaretz, or the level of Mitzrayim, the level of constraints, which is so low that it's considered even in the earth, it is the most immoral part of the earth. It's the Erbas Haaretz. Lamatir, down here below, Adler Mitzrayim Kipshuta, until the physical, literal land of Mitzrayim, Sheba Hayu B'nei Yisrael Begolus, that in that land of Mitzrayim, Yidden were in exile. The intention and purpose behind this descent into exile, so there will be the additional light that comes out of darkness. What's the additional light? One thing is about the additional light of the study of Torah and fulfillment of mitzvahs. Another point is to refine and elevate the sparks of Mitzrayim. So in other words, we can divide it into two different components, like the Rebbe looks at it. First of all, there's the idea of doing Torah mitzvahs, despite the fact that we are in Mitzrayim. Despite the darkness, we are doing Torah mitzvahs, so that's like shining a light in the darkness, and that is so much more powerful than just shining a light in a bright and luminous place. Then there's another thing, that in Mitzrayim itself, there's embedded godly sparks. So by going into Mitzrayim, we don't just have the advantage of, despite the darkness, we are doing Torah mitzvahs, but it's the actual sparks in the darkness itself that we are elevating. The Rebbe speaks about this in other places concerning, in a similar vein, concerning the descent of the neshama down here below. That when the neshama descends down here below, it does so and it gains two things. One thing is to demonstrate its fealty, its loyalty to Hashem, even though it's far away from Hashem. In other words, it's despite being in the body, despite being here in the physical world, still in all, it has the level of its connection to Hashem, and it demonstrates and reveals that connection to Hashem. Another component is that by coming down here below, it elevates the sparks that are in here. So in a similar vein, going into Mitzrayim, going into Golus, has these two components that Rebbe is pointing out over here. When do we actually have the completion of these two intentions? That is when the Yidden go out of Mitzrayim. The idea Mitzrayim, through going out of Mitzrayim, so then there's this additional quality of light, the greater light that comes out of darkness. Like it says, when you will take out the nation from Mitzrayim, you will serve the Eibishter on this mountain. Which means, like we explained also in the previous Maamar, how were the Yidden able to attain Matan Torah? How were they able to reach the level what was revealed on Har Sinai? That was only through the refinement process of going through the Kura Barzel, through the iron smelter in Mitzrayim. So that's the Yisna that through the darkness of Mitzrayim, we reach the greater light of Matan Torah, which if we would have not entered into Mitzrayim, we couldn't have received. Another thing that happened at the conclusion and at going out of Mitzrayim, the Gam Birurus and Mitzrayim, we also refined and elevated the sparks that were embedded in Mitzrayim. Like it says, Mitzrayim, that they emptied out Mitzrayim, Shasuha, Kimitsuda Shemba Dog, and they made it like a bird trap that has no grain in it, like we mentioned before, that the grain was placed over there to trap the birds, to entice the birds to come into the trap. Ukimitsula Shemba Dogim, and like the depth of the sea that has no fish in it. So the Rebbe is going to explain what are these two analogies that we are likening it to both of these things. So he says, in this idea of extracting the sparks that are embedded in Mitzrayim, there are two aspects, Mitzuda v'dogan and Mitzula v'dogim, a trap and grain, and the depth with the fish. The Mitzula hiyam, the depth of the sea, is talking about the level of the sea. What is the level of the sea spiritually? Its root in the level of Kedusha is the concealed world. Just like the sea conceals everything in it, we do not know until you actually go into the sea all the life and the whole entire ecosystem, to use a modern term, that exists under the water. It's all covered over by the water. The same thing, the hidden worlds are so high that the worlds are completely subsumed and covered by the godliness that encompasses them. That is a very high level in Kedusha. Where is a bird trap located? That's located on dry land. The level in Kedusha is the level of the revealed world. The dry land is the level of the revealed world. And a lot of times in Chassidus, when it talks about the concept of Hafach Yom Liaboshi, transformed the sea to dry land, by Kriyas Yamsuf, it's the idea about bringing the concealed levels of Alma Diskasya, the concealed worlds, to be revealed, which, like the dry land, the creatures on the dry land is open and revealed. Misham, from the level of how it is in Kedusha, Nimshach v'nishtalshul b'chinas elu b'l'umazah, it came down, and by a chain descent, these levels in the opposite side, that Ad L'Eretz Mitzrayim Kipshuta, like in the land of Mitzrayim in the literal sense. So we have the land of Mitzrayim is likened to the depths of the sea of Klippa, and the land of Mitzrayim is likened to the dry land of Klippa. And now we have to extract the fish from the sea of Klippa and the grain from the dry land of Klippa. And that's what took place when we left Mitzrayim. B'yitzias Mitzrayim, Hayabirur, calling it Tzotzis, when we went out of Mitzrayim. That's what was the refinement of all the sparks. By Inatzlas Mitzrayim, they emptied out. Mitzrayim Goim. Top of page Reish Beis, second page of the Maamar, second paragraph. The explanation of this matter is in Yomer, as Al Chazal said, initially, the world, Hashem created the worlds, and He would destroy them. And this went on a process like that, kidein lo yahanyanli, because these did not suit me, did not please me. But it wasn't that the Eibishter destroyed these worlds just for the sake of destruction. But vastira hayalmanas livnis, the destruction of the worlds was for the sake of building. As we know in Hilchos Shabbos, it speaks about there's a difference in the laws of Shabbos whether a person is destroying something just to be destructive, where then the person is not liable al pitoira for the halacha of transgressing an avera of Shabbos. He's not called a machal Shabbos min hatoira, would bring a karm chatas if he did it by mistake, versus if his destruction is for the sake of building. If he's destroying something for the sake of building, so then the destruction itself is part of the building, and he's liable for it as if he's building. That's called stir amanas livnis. And in what aspect are these worlds that Hashem destroyed, and that was for the sake of building? So we're not talking about physical worlds, that Hashem actually made physical worlds, but it's talking about spiritual worlds. So the Eibishter made destructions of spiritual worlds, b'shvil binyan olam hatikkun, for the sake of the building up of the world of tikkun, all the worlds that everything is set in its place, Iris and Kalim. Daidei olam hatikkun, because through the world of tikkun, hu tikkun hashvira the olam hatayu, it repairs. The world of tikkun is called tikkun because it's repairing what is broken, that broke, the breaking that took place of the world of tayu, and therefore we can understand the idea of the bitter hanitzaitis that takes place. B'shvil zeh hois and the filos hanitzaitis of tayu ad lo'il mazeh tachten. That's the reason why the sparks of the world of tayu fell down all the way to this low world. For what purpose is that? So a person through his avodah should repair, refine, purify, and elevate them back to their source, till there'll be the extra light and the greater light that comes out of the darkness, because Tayu, being hired in the world of Tikkun, has a more powerful light. So from the darkness of which it's embedded over here in Mitzrayim, that's how there becomes the elevation and the revelation of this greater light. The third paragraph on the page, Tamad over Mash Yisrael Davke. What is the reason that Davke Yidden are the ones that refine the sparks of the world of Toyu? Yes, dugmas inyan yiridas hanetzoitzes doilum hatoyu, because the neshama also has something that is similar to the descent of the sparks of the world of toyu. And therefore, since within the miniature world, that is the person, there is this level, so in a similar vein, in the greater world, in the big picture, in the macro, so there's also the same idea. Viash the Rebbe says, based on this, we could say the Zohar Kesher Ba'adrushim. This is the connection that the Maamarim speak about two topics. It talks about the sparks that fall down in Mitzrayim, and it talks about the neshama of a person coming down to this world. What's the connection? So he says the La'achrish Mavayir in Yeridas HaNetzoitzes, after the Maamarim explaining that the idea of the descent of the sparks into this world, into Mitzrayim, and that is our purpose, to elevate them. Mamshach Bezeh, and the Alter Rebbe continues, and the Maamarim, they continue. V'hainu k'moy al derech moshel b'nishmas ha'adam. This is like, for example, that we find in the neshama of a person, that the neshama of the person descends down here in a similar vein. By pointing out the similarity of the sparks coming down here into this world, into Mitzrayim, with the neshama coming down here into this world, by pointing out that similarity, we can understand why what we do affects and causes the elevation of the sparks. The idea behind this is the neshama, before it descended, before it came into the body, was in a total state of bittul. Like it says, I swear by Hashem that I stood before him. What's the standing before him? It's talking about the neshama above. And the idea of standing, the amida hi bittul. Standing indicates bittul, like we did the highest level of davening, which is Shemoneh Esrei, even higher than Kriyat Shema. We need to stand by it, like you stand up before a king or an important person. So that's the idea, that the neshama above was in the way of amida, meaning it was in the way of bittul before Hashem. Because otherwise, what's it mean standing? There's no body, so there's no standing, there's no sitting. So the concept of standing is what exists over there. Even when you're dealing with the midas, with the emotions, with the emotional character traits, over there we might challenge and say, perhaps when we're dealing, in general, the emotions are love and awe, even though there's other emotions as well, but like we say right away in the beginning of the Tanya, those are all branches and offshoots from love and awe, which in Chassidus, they are likened to Zav and Kesef. Awe is likened to gold, love is likened to silver, even the word Kesef is in the word Kisufim, desire, and so on. One could say the neshama, when it's above, has love and awe of Hashem. So what about the love and awe? Love and awe is not complete bittul, as we know that love is yesh misha oyev, that there must be someone, an existence, someone that has some sense of self, some sense of ego, that he loves someone else or something else. And even Yirach Chassidus explains there is a concept of yesh misha yareh. There is a someone who is in fear. So therefore, it's not the level of bittul like normal amida is. Yet still in all, despite the fact that the av of the neshama above is not like the level of amida, which is total bittul, but it's still it's still higher, and it's considered a yerida when the neshama comes down here. Still in all, the love and the awe that the neshama has when it's above is only in godliness. And so to the rest of the midas, whatever midah the neshama experiences when it's above, it's all godly focused. So therefore, it's understood, even though it might not be the bittul of Amida, it's still in all, it's considered a yerida, a descent, to all of a sudden have the law and love and awe and the emotions be invested in physical matters and mundane matters. From there, from the level the way it's in Gan Eden, it descended and became clothed in the material, physical body, which is known and called in the Zohar, the skin of the snake. That's the idea of Golus. Let's explain in Tanya, Chazal say every single generation a person is obligated to see himself as if he left Mitzrayim, and the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, the B'chol Dor V'Dor, Hainu B'chol Yom V'Yom. What does it mean every single generation? It doesn't mean like once a generation the person thinks about, it's like I went out of Mitzrayim. But the Alter Rebbe explains, Hainu B'chol Yom V'Yom. It means every single day. Why every single day does he have to consider himself like he went out of Mitzrayim? Because the godly soul is in the exile of their own internal Egypt, in the imprisonment of the body, the skin of the snake. Move on, the inyan Yeridas HaNeshama Begufi Dugmas inyan Yeridas HaNetzoitz Toyu. From this is understood that the descent of the neshama in the body is similar to the descent of the sparks of the world of Toyu. Similar to what we say, that the sparks that were in the world of Toyu, that was a very high level, and then they descended down here below until they can be a separate entity, an ego, etc. In the ultimate way, like Pari said, the Nile is mine and I made myself. But even though he believes himself to be like an own God, but he also acknowledges that there is a God that's higher than him. He calls him a God over gods. He calls Hashem I'm a God, and then there's a God on top of me. Since we deal with such darkness in this world, therefore also the goal of the descent of Neshama down here below is not just because the additional light, that the spirit will return to the Eibishter that placed it here, that it itself should return. Like we said before, despite the darkness, the Neshama connects with above, but it has a further goal and an additional mission. In addition to this, it should return with it also the sparks of Tayu. That the sparks of Tayu should also return with, also should return to their root and source Mikdusha, and not just return to their source. Void Lamailam is that they should return to even higher than their source.